So hi there. I want to talk to you about books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. I'm going to say that again. I want to talk to you about books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. Thomas Szasz is spelled S-Z-A-S-Z, Sam, zebra, apple Sam, zebra. And by the way, like this, subscribe to the channel, like this video, subscribe to this video channel, subscribe and like. So I'm going to talk to you about books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. Specifically, I'm going to do a little show and tell. Booyah. Ideology and Insanity, Essays on the Psychiatric Dehumanization of Man by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. I read some but not all of this. It's a various essays on various topics. It was published in the year 1970, so about 10 years after the myth of mental illness. Thomas Szasz sort of includes various ideas in here about rhetoric, mental health, what psychiatry is able to do and what psychiatry is able to not do, the insanity plea, the insanity defense, involuntary mental hospitalization, aka nonconsensual psychiatry, ideology and insanity, ideology and insanity. And by the way, Thomas Szasz's books, a lot of his books are available in like Kindle form or on Google Play Books, so his ebooks. I believe 4 of his books are available as audiobooks. And then of course you can get all his books so in paperback and hardcover. The one exception to that might be the Szasz Quotationary, which might only be available in electronic ebook version. The Second Sin. This book is written in such a way that it has chapters with titles such as ethics, language, emotions, punishment, personal conduct, drugs, suicide, mental illness, schizophrenia, psychotherapy. So this book has chapters, short little chapters, pretty thin book, 133 pages about, published in 1974, so about approximately 14 years after the myth of mental illness. The Second Sin. So how he writes it, he has little chapters with titles, and then within that, rather than have sort of coherent paragraphs strung together in a logical fashion, it's more like within the category that is the chapter heading, it's sort of a few sentences, a paragraph or two, and then it goes on to another discrete idea that relates to the chapter's heading title. I like this format of book a lot. And my next book about psychiatric coercion, I'm actually going to write in a similar format. Thank you, psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. This is a really good Dr. Szasz book, this next one. Heresies, written in a very similar way to The Second Sin. This book was published in 1976, so not long after The Second Sin. Good book. This one has titles of chapters, and again, these are mostly just single words, such as language, law, suicide, institutional psychiatry, schizophrenia, religion. Again, written in a very similar fashion. Chapter with a title, discrete ideas within each chapter that Szasz elucidates upon and writes about. Good book, I recommend it. Law, Liberty, and Psychiatry. I've not read a whole ton of this book. Plan to eventually. Published in the year, copyright 1963 and again 1989. So probably 1963 was the original publication date. Not long after the myth of mental illness. Psychiatric Slavery. This book is primarily about a Supreme Court case, the Donaldson case. According to psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, civil commitment in the insanity defense formed the foundations of psychiatric slavery. So I'll say about that. And again, if you want to get books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, Amazon sells them, eBay sells them, Audible sells them, Google Play Books sells them. A lot of university libraries have them available. Probably some non-university libraries have them available. Good stuff. This next book, The Manufacture of Madness. The Manufacture of Madness. Good book. The subtitle is A Comparative Study of the Inquisition and the Mental Health Movement. So again, the whole title here, The Manufacture of Madness, A Comparative Study of the Inquisition and the Mental Health Movement. So psychiatrist Thomas Szasz sometimes talks about how psychiatry is effectively a religion. Thomas Szasz has written something to the effect that psychiatry is a fake religion that seeks to destroy true religion. Maybe I will elucidate upon that in a future video. The Manufacture of Madness. According to psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, in the past, men created witches. Now, men create mental patients. Food for thought. The Untamed Tongue. The Untamed Tongue. Again, this one is written in a similar fashion to The Second Sin and Heresies. This one, published in 1990. This book has chapter titles such as Children and Parents, Language, Insanity Defense, Mental Hospital, Personal Conduct, Punishment, Suicide, Money, The Untamed Tongue. Again, one of my more liked books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. I particularly like this one. Cheers. Psychiatric Justice. I need to take a deep dive into this one. This is one of his books that is sort of written less like Heresies and the Untamed Tongue. This was published in 1965. The Theology of Medicine. Dr. Szasz has another book called Schizophrenia, the Sacred Symbol of Psychiatry. Now, religion does not necessarily have to be theological. Religion can mean, according to dictionaries, sort of an adherence to principles with ardor and faith. According to some dictionaries, religion can mean to have faith in an idea with extreme dedication. It doesn't have to involve God necessarily. Atheism can be a religion. Socialism can be a religion. So on and so forth, depending how the word is used. The Theology of Medicine. In one book, psychiatrist Thomas Szasz talks about the Catholic doctrine of Transubstantiation. Psychiatrist Thomas Szasz uses the term literalized metaphor to refer to ideas like the Catholic doctrine of Transubstantiation, to say this bread and wine is literally the body and blood of Christ. That's a literalized metaphor. To just say this bread and wine is the body and blood of Christ, one could sort of mean that symbolically, like Protestants tend to, versus Catholics, they literally mean that. That's the doctrine of transubstantiation. Thomas Szasz, in reference to psychiatry, Thomas Szasz, in relation to psychiatry, talks about how psychiatrists literalize the metaphor of mental illness. The mind is ill. The mind is a function of the brain, so therefore the brain must be ill if the mind is ill. Biological psychiatry. That's an article of faith. There is no proof that mental illnesses are brain illnesses. If there is proof that mental illnesses are brain illnesses, that means someone has a brain illness, aka a neurological disease. And hence, if mental illnesses are brain illnesses, then neurologists should treat mental illnesses. Additionally, if mental illnesses are brain illnesses, then they should be called neurological disorders treated by neurologists, not psychiatric disorders treated by psychiatrists. Neurosyphilis is a perfect example of this. Before we understood what caused neurosyphilis, we locked up syphilitics in madhouses. Now we understand that neurosyphilis is a brain disease. Psychiatry, the Science of Lies. Thin Book is one of Thomas Szasz's last books, published in about 2009. It's a good one. Psychiatry, the Science of Lies. In this book, he compares psychiatric diagnoses to art forgeries, ceremonial chemistry, the ritual persecution of drugs, addicts, and pushers, ceremonial chemistry. I haven't read much of this book yet. However, I assume it's somewhat like Our Right to Drugs, the Case for a Free Market. Insanity, the Idea and Its Consequences. Insanity, the Idea and Its Consequences. This book by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz is about insanity and the insanity defense. Again, according to psychiatrist Thomas Szasz, civil commitment and the insanity defense form the foundations of psychiatric slavery. Again, civil commitment and the insanity defense form the foundations of psychiatric slavery. In psychiatric slavery is when people earn money from non-consensual psychiatry and psychiatric coercion. The insanity defense is one way of diverting criminals from the criminal justice system into psychiatric systems. Locked psychiatric units function effectively as jails, and professionals earn money in these psychiatric systems. They earn money from psychiatric force, coercion, and confinement. Hence, psychiatric slavery. Insanity is something that can be acted. People can act insane, and then if other people believe them, they're labeled as being insane. It's ultimately subjective. Psychiatrists cannot objectively know what someone is thinking or feeling in the past. Insanity, the idea and its consequences. There are unintended consequences from viewing the universe through the lens of insanity as a reality, as an objective reality. Good books. Outlaw the insanity defense, outlaw civil commitment, have a free market in drugs. Words to the Wise. Words to the Wise, a medical philosophical dictionary. Published in the year 2004. This is written in a similar fashion to the Szasz quotationary, the Untamed Tongue and Heresies, and the Second Sin. Our Right to Drugs, the Case for a Free Market. Our Right to Drugs, the Case for a Free Market. Maybe you can guess what this book is about. Thomas Szasz was a libertarian, and this is sort of saying that, at least in principle, all drugs should be legal. We have a free market in religion. We have a free market in food. We have a free market in speech. We should have a free market in drugs, in principle at least. We should get there. That's what this book is saying. That's my understanding anyway. Cruel compassion. Cruel compassion. Psychiatric control of society's unwanted. Liberation by oppression. A comparative study of slavery and psychiatry. By psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. Again, psychiatrist Thomas Szasz supported abolishing psychiatric slavery, aka psychiatric coercion, aka nonconsensual psychiatry. Civil commitment and the insanity defense form the foundations of psychiatric slavery. So if you haven't, I hope you choose to read some books by psychiatrist Thomas Szasz. I hope you get the Szasz quotationary and read it. I hope you read The Manufacture of Madness. I hope you read Heresies. I hope you read The Untamed Tongue. And I hope you can use these as a lens to more clearly think about psychiatry. We need to outlaw civil commitment in the insanity defense. We need to outlaw psychiatric slavery. We need to repeal unjust drug laws. Psychiatrist Thomas Szasz wrote about 35 books. This is not all of them. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, watch my other videos, visit my websites, listen to my music. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night, whenever and wherever you may be. Cheers and limitless peace. Cheers and limitless peace.